Hey guys, so we just wanted to warn everyone before you watch this episode that this episode contains spoiler alerts. We're going to express it so many times throughout the episode, but we want to be safe and let you know that this summary, I guess, I don't know what you would call it, but this episode review, that's a better word. This review of The Good Place contains a lot of spoilers, so if you haven't watched it, please watch it before you watch this video. We're only talking about season 1. All right. Go steal your friend's Netflix account or something and have at it. It worked though. Okay. Hey everyone. How's it going? I don't know what number episode this is. We should probably
5, 6.
I don't know, man. Time 6.f and filmed in THX audio. Yeah. Anyways, welcome to whatever number episode this is. I want to say it's like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something like that.
Right. But us, youth ministers of Pizza Ministries, us, we're just like you. You know, we don't want to make it seem like we don't like common folk thing, you know, because peasants. We only read Chesterton and Tolkien and Lewis and all that stuff. No, we like to be like the common folk, and we like to partake in Netflix shows, right?
And the one binging.
Oh my dude, the word binge is not extreme to me because I do it constantly. Like it's not uncommon for me to get through like okay. So we're gonna talk about that show, The Good Place, today. We love that show. I didn't think I was gonna love it, but I love it, and I have a very obsessive personality. So when I get into something, I really get into it. I think Brittany and I. Well, Brittany falls asleep, and I pretend that she doesn't fall. Like I don't know that she fell asleep, so I can keep watching it. But we finished the whole series in probably less than a week. We're really bad. Anyways, it turned out to be a great show. It was recommended by a bunch of people. But there's a lot of philosophical questions, a lot of philosophical themes, but we also saw some theological themes within the show.
Yeah. And Brett actually texted me like the day I finished binging it, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever seen The Good Place?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Wow, I just finished watching that entire show." So we're like, "Hey, let's do a video on it."
Right.
But I really liked it, and this video is going to contain some spoilers. Right.
Spoilers. Is that a good spot, Keith?
Spoiler alert.
All right. Right there. Oh, alert.
And I think we're going to talk about the first season, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the first season.
Just the first season. So if you've watched the first season, you're good.
Yes. Yes.
But I don't know. I guess the main spoiler is when I was watching The Good Place, the first season, it reminded me of a Twilight Zone episode from the 60s. And it was just kind of real quick. It was a thief. He's robbing a jewelry store. He's trying to get away.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert for the Twilight Zone. It's on Netflix. Check it out. But he's running away from a jewelry store. Police are after him. He's like shooting at them. They shoot back. He gets shot and he dies. Right. So he wakes up kind of in the spot that he died. There's a guy in like a white suit, almost looks like Colonel Sanders. Right. But he's like very like clean looking and everything like that. And he's like, "Hey, you died, and I'm here. It's my job. I've been assigned to you to give you anything that you want." And so the whole episode is him like gambling, like having women like in his mansion and just like having all this money, doing whatever he wants. And then at the very end of the episode, he kind of is like, you know, I'm not really liking having everything that I want. And I didn't really live a good life. Maybe I'm actually meant for the other place. You know, maybe I'm made for the bad place. And then at the last, second of the episode is the guy in the white suit. He's like, "What makes you think this is the good place?" And then he laughs maniacally. And then that's the episode. Yeah. And I loved it. So when I saw The Good Place, similar setup, but I didn't see it coming. So that's how
you didn't see it coming.
Even did a good job. Yeah, because I was thinking like they probably won't do this.
Yeah,
they like crossed my mind maybe like third episode, but I was like, this is probably not that.
Actually, I was surprised also, and I'm usually good at calling endings for things, but I was pretty surprised. For those who don't know, the premise of the show is the main protagonist. Her name is Eleanor, right?
Shellstrop.
Dang, you remember all this stuff. Anyway, so Eleanor is brought to the good place, and she meets Michael, the architect, who's kind of like God.
Yeah.
The whole premise of the guy who figured out heaven when he was really high is
Doug.
That's when I knew the show was going to be really good. Just to let you know, I was dying.
You guessed it was Spark.
Wasn't it like 91% right or something like that?
Yeah,
it's so
after
funny.
doing some mushrooms. Or something like that.
So funny. Anyway, so she's in the good place, and what happens? She
wakes up.
Yeah.
And they like say, hey, this is a recap of your life,
Right.
and you were a really good person, and your point total of good acts was so high that you got to go to heaven. Or not heaven, they don't call it heaven, they call it the good place.
Yeah.
And then they review her life, and it's her right name, but then everything they say about her life is like somebody else.
It's so funny. Her house is like a minimalist house
with
that has clowns. It's so funny. And they have soulmates. And so that brought the question, like, is Chidi really her soulmate?
Yeah.
A lot of really cool things. Theologically, though, it helps you to think what heaven is. You brought up the Twilight Zone. You brought up that episode. But the idea of getting to heaven, right? The good place presents heaven to be for those who get enough points, who do more good things than bad things, and you deserve heaven, right? Theologically, that is absolutely incorrect. In our faith, our time on earth is supposed to condition us. That sounds kind of weird, but it's an acquired taste for us to desire heaven, and especially when we understand what heaven is, which is eternal communion with God, right? And I always tell our teens this, but if you were forced to hang out at someone's house for like a week that you didn't know, or even with someone that you didn't like, you would try your hardest not to go, or you would try your hardest to leave once you're there, right? We perceive heaven to be kind of like the good place in the beginning, with the frozen yogurt and the flying and a Janet that could give you everything. Janet's the best, and a soulmate, right? Yeah. Janet's the best character, by the way. I love Janet. But that's not what heaven is, right? We won't desire heaven once we become face to face with God after we die, unless we really want that. And it's not a compelling thing, I'd assume, to see God in the face and say, this is what I want. If you don't know God, there's a good chance you don't want to be with God, or you feel enough shame to turn away because you know that that isn't what you desire, right? Kind of like that Twilight Zone episode you were talking about. When we are face to face with good, when we're not prepared to be with good, we don't want to be with, we become too self-reflective, and we realize that we don't belong. Yeah. And that's kind of the premise of the good place. She realizes that she doesn't belong in the good place. It comes later with all the thoughts of that, but throughout the first season, she's trying to live this lie that she is the other Eleanor, and she doesn't want to bring up any suspicions that there was a clerical error or whatever it was. And she's trying her hardest to stay there, right? Do you want to explain what happens after that?
Well, and I think kind of going off of that, in other videos we've talked about the relationship with Christ, and I think that's it. Heaven is being with God all the time for eternity, right? And so on earth, it's, there is a focus of our relationship with Christ. And C.S. Lewis says that hell, right, isn't a place where God like locks bad people in hell, but that but that hell is locked from the inside. That really hell is a place where God, or not God, but people say, I want my way. I want to do my thing, and I'm going to lock God out.
Right.
And so hell is a choice, and not just like God saying like, nope, you didn't do enough good deeds. I'm going to lock you in this room for eternity so you can be burned. But it's people choosing that.
Right.
And the cool thing about The Good Place is when I first watched it, with somewhat of an understanding of the Catholic faith and theology, I was watching like a secular TV show, and I was like, wow, this is like a really bad, this heaven sucks. Like, this good place is terrible. Like eating froyo for the rest of your life.
Right.
And so they hit upon these like main themes where I kept watching. I was like, from a secular perspective, or no, from a Catholic perspective, this is like a really bad heaven.
It's so bad.
And the interesting part is that Eleanor is in this position where if she tells the truth, if she does the right thing, she could go to hell.
Yeah.
Right. But if she does the wrong thing and keeps it a secret, she stays in heaven.
Right.
Which is like a really interesting dilemma. And then the twist on that is her soulmate his name is Chidi, and he's a moral philosopher. And so his whole person is diving into ethics and like human logic when it comes to right and wrong. And so that adds even like, I think, a bigger layer to the whole thing, which is cool.
And this is where the spoiler kicks in. It ends up being that Michael, who was the architect of all this, was actually a demon who created a really unique way to...
a neighborhood.
A neighborhood that was actually hell, or the bad place, and it was an elaborate torture device for these people that deserved to go to the bad place. Super interesting thing.
Yeah, and you find all that at the very last episode.
Right. Sorry. Spoiler alert! Exclamation point again.
Yeah, and there's 4 humans, right? So it's Eleanor, it's Chidi, it's Jason, and Tahani. And I don't know if we should talk about them, but they're designed like they pick these 4 people that could perfectly just piss each other off for the rest of their rest of eternity.
Okay.
So it was pretty funny. Jason is hilarious.
He's pretty great. He's a Jacksonville Jaguars fan who's obsessed with Blake Bortles. Man, that's
and when he gets to the good place, he's told that he's a monk who doesn't talk, and he just kind of goes along with
Spoiler alert again. The thing that I was like you, though, I watched like the first 2 episodes before I had to teach confirmation on a Sunday, and I forgot what the lesson was at confirmation, but I started explaining the good place, and it was like, you know, we have this concept of heaven where you could do all this stuff. You could fly, you could be with your best friends and everyone is happy and all that type of stuff. And I was kind of ragging on the show like, this isn't what heaven is like, you know? So I'm sure like all the teens and young adults who have watched the show were looking at me like, oh boy, you got something. But the thing that was really interesting to me was there's this one woman who was kind of in a medium place, and Eleanor was arguing that she was supposed to be in the medium place too. And that's kind of like purgatory, or the secular idea of purgatory when it's not developed. And it's her in the middle of a desert in kind of like a modest house. She only has 2 VHSs. One of them is Cannonball Run Part 2. And the other one is the making of Cannonball Run Part 2 or something. It's so funny. The show is absolutely hilarious. Right. And, you know, she deserved to be in the medium place. And as I was watching it with Brittany, I noticed that she was in isolation. She wasn't in pain. She wasn't surrounded by anybody, even people that she hates. But she was just living this very bland life.
Yeah.
And when I watched that, I realized that's probably more like hell than the bad place. And the bad places, they're always making jokes about like, bees with teeth. Is that what it was? And stuff that physically hurt you. And that's how we think of hell sometimes. We think of the devil like just poking you in the butt with a pitchfork for all eternity, and you breaking rocks while you're getting poked in the butt or whatever, right?
Yeah. And hell can really be, it's what we want. Right. In some ways, it's like our selfishness kind of turning inward, turning our back towards God. But I think one of the cool things that I noticed, like when I didn't know that it was really hell, and they kept mentioning porn. They kept like all these references to porn, and I'm like, what why would, you know, like, this is stupid. Does a secular version of heaven have porn in it? And then when they flipped it and it was like, this is hell, I was like, oh. And I think, I don't know what their, obviously, like, the writer's intentions were, but I thought for me, I was like, I kind of like that.
Yeah,
you know?
And truth can be conveyed even.
Yeah. Porn had a place in hell.
Yeah, it works.
Intentionally or unintentionally in this show. It was interesting.
And going back to the medium place, that is kind of like the purgatory of the show. That's usually a classic interpretation of what hell is, right? Complete isolation where you can only focus on yourself and nobody else because you're the only one that's present. It's a complete absence of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially chosen with your actions and all that type of stuff. It can be equated, Bishop Barron equates it to one of the rings in Dante's Inferno where a demon, it might be Lucifer, is literally stuck in a pool of ice staring at his own reflection.
Lucifer.
Right. And I don't know if you've had those days or nights when you're lying in bed trying to sleep and then boom, a random memory of your awkward self in junior high pops in your brain and you just can't sleep because you did something really or yesterday. You just can't sleep because it was so awkward, right? And it's in your brain so much that even though it was in the past, you identify with those awkward actions that you did in junior high or in high school or as a kid or whatever. That's essentially a good way to interpret what hell is, an absence of love, an absence of God, and focus only on ourselves, right? And especially the things that we don't desire ourselves to be, and it corrupts us to the point where we believe to be that person. So I thought that was one inaccuracy. Was Purgatory felt more like hell to me than The Bad Place felt like hell. But do you have any more thoughts on this?
Well, and just in this good place that is really the bad place, they end up like becoming better, right? Which is not what hell is like, and is more like Purgatory, but still an inaccurate version of Purgatory, and that's part of the show, and we won't go into the other seasons. Yeah,
we won't do the other seasons yet. We'll give you some time. We'll give you like 2 days to binge watch the rest of them on Netflix. I have Netflix. It's nice. I am also stealing a Hulu account from my friend Rico. Thank you, Rico, for allowing me to watch The Good Place as they come out.
Well, I do think the other thing is that the show shows like how I think empty heaven would be without God. Like they don't mention God at all. And I think it shows just how empty and like artificial and just kind of a letdown it would be if it's just froyo and flying and
if it's just that.
If it's just that. And I think they did a good job. Again, whether they intended to or not, to show that part of it.
So what mirrors heaven for us as Catholics? To be blunt, it's the boring things, or the things that we perceive to be boring. It's going to adoration, receiving the Eucharist, going to mass, doing all that stuff. I'm sure you've met people in your life where they get it and they're there for a relationship with God. And that's what we all aspire to be, because that is what heaven is like. There may be flying, there may be frozen yogurt, there may be all that type of stuff. There could be unicorns. The Dodgers won't lose in the postseason. Anyways.
But it is that sacrifice and selfless love, that you're in selfless love. You're
and again, to emphasize, it's not based on like your moral number or how many good things that you've done.
That would suck.
Yeah, it would suck. But it's based on how close we've grown with God on our time on earth, right? It's based on whether or not we could see God face to face, similarly in a similar way that we do in adoration in the Eucharist when we receive the Eucharist. If we're willing to do that for all eternity, it's not as basic as I just mentioned, but it is essentially that. Have you acquired enough taste of God to be willing to spend all eternity with God, praising his name? Yeah. So this is all practice for heaven. Good luck.
And if you like The Good Place and you haven't, you should check out The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. Which not the same, but similar realm. And
they all steal from each other. Art is dead, am I right? No, I'm just kidding. But it shows we don't know what the motives of the people who wrote The Good Place.
We don't.
I think that the person who wrote The Good Place also helped write The Office and Parks and Rec, all those NBC shows that we enjoy. But it shows that there's an imprint in human beings. If the intent is not to express what heaven really is and who God is, it shows that there's an imprint that God put on each and every one of us that we could accidentally express the truths of God's love to people, right? It's within our identity. Allow that identity within you guys, if you can, to be expressed. Don't be ashamed of that. And I'm telling you, once you come to terms with that, you can't help but watch. Like, everything that you watch will feel theological to you, will feel artistic, whether it's the opposite where it explains hell well or evil well or the divine well. You're going to be able to see that type of stuff once you recognize the imprint that God put on your soul. So watch these shows. We need people to watch these things and explain who God is or what evil is. I just watched The Joker and it hurt me inside. And I enjoyed it quite a bit, but it expressed what evil is, you know? I don't know. Find these type of things. Art is so important. We'll make another video about that at a certain point, but it helps us to understand who God is and what our plan is, or what his plan for us is. So anyways, That is our spoiler episode on The Good Place. Please watch it. It's great. It's actually funny too. Yeah, there's so many good characters. The last season is going on now. I didn't watch the episode.
Final season.
Yeah. So, if you watch The Good Place, tell us what your favorite moment is in the comment section down here. I don't know if we could do something fancy. We don't have to do something fancy. It's down there. Okay. Put a comment down, but also don't forget to like and subscribe and give that bell a little poke so it jingles. Oh man, we gotta go. All right, so have a good day, guys. Thank you for watching. Feel free to share this video with others. Show that you're not that much of a dweeb and you like none,
or that you are.
Yeah, you're right. All right, thanks, dweebs. See you later.